welcome to the Transplant Strong Podcast. Today I'm joined by Alisha. Alisha has been a guest before on the podcast 2 years ago, we were just saying now. And today we're going to chat a little bit about kind of like what we're doing since we had our transplant, because both of us are working in and around transplant people and doing what we can to help people. So I thought it'd be nice to have her on so we can kind of just chat about how, the transplant has led us down certain paths. Hi, Alisha, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. I'm excited to be back.
Good, it's great to have you back. So, since your transplant, when was your transplant again? Just remind me.
I had two back-to-back liver transplants in August of 2020.
Yes, August 2020. So, it's been a few years now. And since you had that transplant, how's that navigated you down certain paths? What are you doing right now?
So I'm currently working in transplant, actually. I like to say I was thrown into this work with my own transplant, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of what was going on and where there was really this need for patient support and emotional support. And so really I got started not at all expecting that this was what I was going to be doing. I was very much on my own journey and trying to figure out what worked for me and um, creating the support that I needed. And as I was doing that, I was naturally reaching out and building community and connecting with people like yourself, like so many amazing transplant recipients. And I started realizing that the work that I was doing was this really big need in the transplant space. And there's not a lot of talk about emotional health or mental health or like how you're supposed to keep on living after you get an organ. So that's kind of how I took my background. I was a yoga teacher before my transplant. So I took my work in body work, body healing modalities. I became certified as a somatic coach. And now I take all of those things, put them together, and work to provide holistic support for transplant recipients.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So you say like that stemmed through social media, or have you been on Instagram and sharing your story and building the connections that way?
Yeah, I started on Instagram. Even before my transplant, I was kind of sharing my waiting list journey on
Yeah.
Instagram and Facebook. I share the story of like immediately post-transplant, I was the person, I had my phone like 2 inches from my face, Googling hashtag liver transplant, like trying to find anybody else. I think it was like 3 a.m. It was this crazy. I
Mm.
just wanted someone else to feel, I wanted to know that I wasn't alone in this journey. And that's how it started. I started sharing my life on Instagram, and that led into, I made a lot of connections, really started branching out in the transplant community. Now I'm over on Transplant Life quite a bit, and I hang out there with that group of people. And yeah, it's very much started as I'm just going to share what works for me, and I really found my people.
Yeah. So before you had your transplant and you were doing yoga, so you have like an affinity to how the body works and
Yeah.
helping people and all of that. And you say that stems over because I know since my transplant doing yoga and things just helps for many reasons, obviously like your joints and your stiffness, but also you've got that side of it where it's quite relaxing and calming. So yeah, how do you join the two together in a sense?
That's where I feel like my somatic coaching background comes in. I found somatics through yoga. I was connected with a teacher that did both. And somatics is really about body-based therapies, body-based healing. We're going into the body versus like more traditional therapy. You would think of, oh, I'm going to think and talk, and it's very cognitive. And somatic therapy is very much, where is this in your body? What does it feel like? We're not necessarily attached so much to the stories around it, which is a lot of what I love about yoga as well, is it's the
Mm.
exploration into the body, which I find super, there's a super big crossover when we look at that and transplant. We've just had all of these crazy things happen to our bodies. So in my mind, like it makes sense if we're going to start addressing these things and healing, we're going to go to the body first and not necessarily the cognitive thinking linear patterns of things.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I think even in my recovery, like I felt like the first year was all surrounded by my physical recovery
Mhm.
before any sort of mental side.
Yeah, there was so much emphasis. I remember that was like, go for your walks and, do
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
And I don't think anyone really even asked me, they're like, how are you doing mentally? How are you doing emotionally? Like, how
mm,
are you processing all of this trauma that just happened to you?
yeah. It's very important. And
Mhm.
How soon did you get back to sort of practicing yoga yourself after your transplant?
I started I want to say it was like 6 or 7 months post-transplant.
Yeah,
And then I had another huge setback right around a year and a half-ish. Um, my abdominal wall shattered with just the surgery and everything that happened. It never actually went back together. So I had
yeah,
no core muscles at all, which, as you can kind of imagine, you kind of need core muscles for things like yoga or working
yeah,
out or basically daily living.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so then I had abdominal reconstructive surgery in November of 22. And since then, I've kind of been getting back into really practicing yoga and like more of the physical side of things. I started and then I had a little delay and now I'm kind of back at it.
Yeah, I think it's like for yoga, for people that don't really do it as well, they might see someone on telly who's doing these really complicated mad moves and just think that's not for me. But
Yeah.
it's not always like that, is it?
No, not at all. A lot of what we present as like yoga is the very westernized version of yoga of, you're going to go to the yoga class and touch your toes and like wrap your legs behind your head and all these things, which is not at all how I teach yoga or how I like to practice yoga. I like a lot, again, of the somatic stuff of where are you feeling that in your body? And then if you moved your body like this, what would that feel like? And if we explored moving this way, what is that going to be like? And really approaching the practice and the body with more curiosity versus we're going to go and we're going to make this shape.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so where do you do all your yoga? So can I join online? Do you do online sessions? Is it in like, in a class somewhere?
I do a little bit of everything. So I teach locally here in Alberta where I live, and I teach online classes. I've done workshops. I teach a regular grief yoga class every month, which is really focused around like where we store grief in the body and how we're going to move through that. And then, yeah, a lot of the somatic work that I do with one-on-one clients is either in studio if they're local, or we'll do it over Zoom or online.
Yeah. And is this predominantly transplant patients, or do you do with like a broad range of people?
I do it with other people too, but it's not my favorite. I have an affinity for my transplant friends.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I've ended up doing and the people that I've kind of attracted have been people that have had transplants or have some kind of chronic illness background that are now coming to
Yeah.
somatic practice.
I think that's very important because I went for a personal trainer just for fitness. It wasn't for yoga or anything, but she was very, very good, but she had no understanding of how hard it was for me to do sit-ups or planks or anything
Ah.
after a transplant. So I think it's important for people that are guiding someone, if they've had that experience themselves.
Hmm. Yeah. The other thing I've noticed too, especially with yoga, but I think with a lot of things is, and maybe you can relate, we store a lot in our physical bodies and we can move one way and it's like, oh, now there's all these feelings.
Yeah.
And so being able to be with somebody that it's like, oh yeah, I know what this is like. I can relate, and that can kind of help you and guide you and support you through that process is it takes it beyond that we're just, physically moving and working out to now we're having some kind of relationship, some kind of connection. There's something else happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you do that as well, but obviously you do these podcasts, and what else do you do around transplants?
I do a lot. So yeah, I do podcasts. I teach yoga somatic healing for the transplant population. I have a support group that I teach or that I lead through Transplant Life that is twice a month. Um, and
And again, how do someone, if they wanted to join up to that, how do they join up to that?
that transplant support group, you can find the link through the Transplant Life website.
Yeah.
It is on the second Tuesday and the last Wednesday of every month. And we just it's global. It's a bunch of us that get together and we talk about all things transplant and healing and all of that. So that's always the highlight of what I get to do is to do that support. And then I do grief work as well with transplant recipients. So that's more like one-on-one connection for grief, emotional health, that kind of thing.
That's very, very important, really, because I
Mhm.
mean, there's the two types of grief, I suppose. There's the sort of grief for yourself, but then if you have that thought of the donor's family as well, is that something that gets covered in that?
Yes, that is something,
Yeah.
I mean, I've dealt with personally that I hear all the time is like, now I have to figure out how to live with death, and I am carrying this with me, and
Mm.
like I am alive because someone is not. And it's like no one really wants to talk about it, I feel like, because they're like, oh, you're alive,
Mm.
you should be grateful. And I'm like, we need to talk about it. Let's go. Like, let's unpack all of these feelings around death and life and where you fit in the middle of this.
Yeah, talking's just the main part of everything, really, because sometimes the person maybe not even be able to relate, but it's just actually getting it off your chest as well, and just saying it out
Yes.
loud sometimes.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I found if we're looking at like how do you regulate your nervous system? How do you, bring yourself back to some kind of emotional baseline? It's like we don't need people to solve our problems. We need someone to be there and to listen and to like hold that space for us as we figure it out.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Someone else said that to me before, and I thought it was quite a wise thing to say, because you
Mhm.
can't solve people's problems, but like you say, you can help them, you can guide them, and
Yeah.
be there along the way. That's great.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the plans for the rest of this year?
Oh, I feel like things are always changing. There's always so much happening. I love the work that I get to do and giving back to the transplant community. And I'm hoping to keep doing more of that and to kind of grow and continue. I'm also hoping to actually take some time off and spend some
I
time
was
with
gonna
my
say, is there
family.
a holiday or something nice?
Yes, I actually have a holiday planned around my transplant anniversary, which is coming up in August. So we're going to go take some time away just surrounding those dates. Which is good. I'm very much looking forward to getting away and having that break.
Yeah, I know it's a slightly different topic, but have you been away since your transplant? Is that something you've done?
I have. Yeah, most of what I've done, I've just been like pretty locally in Alberta. Last summer, I flew to BC. I was on Vancouver Island, which was actually a work trip, but I also did a lot of fun stuff while I was over there, and I got to swim in the ocean for the first time. Um, Pre-transplant, I was like hooked up to all these tubes and machines and ever, so I couldn't actually go. Like I'd never been in the ocean, so that was a very big, monumental occasion for
Yeah.
got to swim in the ocean.
Yeah, it's amazing, because the sea is a powerful place anyway, and just to be near it is mad. But to have that experience for the first time,
hmm
uh, especially because you must have seen people in the sea and just thought, I can't wait
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Yeah. I've seen so many people do. I was raised like Alberta. It's very, we got the Rocky Mountains. It's gorgeous. I always kind of thought like, oh, I'm a mountain person. I didn't think that I was actually going to have a reaction to the water. And then as soon as I got to the ocean, it was like this huge release of emotion. I was like, oh, maybe I am an ocean person after all.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. Like I say, it's a powerful, powerful force of nature, the ocean, and
Yeah.
just being near it is helps, and so
Yes.
stuff like that is mad.
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant. That's really, really cool. So, like I say, anyone that wants to find all the links to the things you do, where's the best place to look?
Everything is linked on my Instagram. I usually try to keep that. That's where I'm most up to date.
Yeah.
So at the Ellie Emeralds, and that's kind of where I share if I have support groups coming up, if I'm leading yoga classes, if I have coaching. Anything is kind of all linked on my Instagram.
That's great.
Hmm.
I think we've covered everything there.
I think so. This has been
I think
fun.
so. Is there anything else that you do that we haven't covered?
Oh gosh. I feel like that about covers most of it. If it relates to like I call myself an emotional support human. So if it relates to supporting people, body-based therapies, I've kind of done it all.
That's great. Well, yeah, I'll put your link to your Instagram and to Transplant Life under this video and on the
Yeah.
Instagram and everywhere else. So hopefully, if anyone wants to connect to you, they want to do one of your yoga classes or one of your therapy sessions, or is it a therapy session or is it just a get together? And do you call it a therapy session or is it just a get together?
So when I do support groups, that's more, I mean, I guess like a support group format, that's like group coaching. And then one-on-one, what I do with people is also, I guess, technically classified as somatic coaching.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's great. Well, thank you so much for chatting to me today again, Alicia.
Thank you. This was fun. I hope to be back
Yeah.
soon.
I was going to say let's not leave it 2 years this time.
Yeah, we'll do a little shorter time period this time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.